selling with authenticity.
It's building that relationship, about the value.
Because you want to make that impact.
It can make you happier.
Elevate others around
Welcome
us.
to the Selling from the Heart podcast, your home for authentic, effective, and socially integrated sales strategies to help you master the art of selling. Join your co-hosts Larry Levine and Daryl Amy, along with some of the world's best sales thought leaders and practitioners, as we explore ways to help you grow your sales.
Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Daryl Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
You know, we got so much stuff going on. This is a highlight. I love when we get a chance to talk to really cool guests on the Selling from the Heart podcast, and we're in for a treat today.
Oh, I can't wait for you to meet Robin Treasure. This is going to be a fantastic conversation. And Larry, all of this, though, the cool things going on, the way that we're seeing sales professionals now grab on to the message of authenticity and the methodology of building trust and seeing that happen and hearing success stories about that is so fun. It just gets me so excited right now. And I just want to give a shout out to everybody right now that's in our training or coaching programs. I see people digging in deep and I see lights coming on, and it's just it's so fun. So just thank you to everybody.
Yeah, I've always said, and will continue to say, selling from the heart's a lifestyle. This is just a lifestyle. You wear your heart on your sleeve, you build deep, meaningful relationships, and you bring business value to the forefront. Watch what starts to happen.
And I know what you're going to say. Selling from the heart's a lifestyle, not a light switch. But during our coaching, we see a light switch, right?
Yeah, I just had to allow you to say it. I had to say, yeah.
That's fantastic. By the way, shout out as well to all of our sales leaders. You know, it's a challenge right now. It always has been a challenge being a sales leader, but especially right now, there's some unprecedented problems that we need to solve. And that's why we put together the Sales Leaders Mastermind. And the Sales Leader Mastermind is an opportunity to gather with like-hearted sales leaders on a monthly basis. And we work to solve each other's problems. And in today's marketplace with low employee engagement, high turnover, low quota attainment of sales reps, this is something that is a really cool new thing that's going on. And it's fun watching sales leaders collaborate together and encourage and help each other in overcome some of these challenges.
And what's been really nice about this is a couple things. A, it's a safe place to just to air it out. But the other thing is how the conversation continues after the mastermind.
Absolutely. So if you're a sales leader or you know one, send them to sellingfromtheheart.net/mastermind, and you learn how you can get involved in this incredible group. But one of the things that's important as a sales leader is emotional intelligence. And Larry, today's guest is going to bring it. Why don't you introduce our friend and let's dive in.
By the way, Robin Treasure, welcome. It's been awesome getting to know a kindred spirit, somebody who's not too far from me. So I'm in Southern California. Robin's a little bit up north of me. And we just hit it off. And I'm just a big believer that conversations, they start to take meaningful ways when you align values. And one of the values that's near and dear to us is Robin, is heart. So Robin Treasure, welcome to Selling from the Heart podcast.
Thanks so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, you know the question that every guest on the Selling from the Heart podcast answers, Robin, and this is going to be fun to hear from you. What does it mean to you, Robin, to sell from the heart?
So I really feel that selling from the heart is three different things. So first of all, selling from the heart is about releasing emotional attachment to the sale. Releasing emotional attachment to the sale so that you can be present and show up in a way where you're ready to serve your customer in the best way possible. So that's number one. Number two is connecting to what you love, right? I think we need to talk about love more in sales, about what you love about your product or service, right? What do you love about your customers? What do you love about the work that you do and the way you can show up every single day? And it doesn't matter if you're selling widgets or copy machines or, whatever it is. Maybe you don't love the product itself, but you can definitely love what it does for your customers and what you can do for your customers, right? So that's the second one. The third one is I really believe that the heart, selling from the heart, is a way to level set and come back to center. And what I mean by that is, there's at this point, there is definitely a spectrum and a range of sellers out there. On the one end, you have some sellers who are maybe a little too aggressive, a little too focused on their own motives, and not so much on providing value and service to their customers. By connecting to their heart, it's a way to come back to the center, right? It's a way for them to really come back and serve from the heart. On the other end of the spectrum, you have sellers who actually have really great intentions, great motivations. They do want to serve. They do want to be there for their customers. But the problem is they can be a little afraid of being pushy or salesy, with good reason, because there's still stigma, right? Which we're all doing our best to get rid of that stigma. But with good reason, they are afraid of being pushy or salesy. So how do they overcome that and get that courage to sell from a really powerful and authentic place? That's by connecting to their heart. So it's a way to level set, come back to center. And actually, I'm a language nerd as well. And the word courage, the Latin root of courage is cor. That's the Latin word for heart. So by connecting to your heart, you have the courage and the selflessness to serve in the best way possible.
Oh, I love this stuff. We have heart nerdery going on this podcast today. This is really great. Combine it with Daryl, who's tech nerdery, and who knows where this is going to go. But I love what you said. And I had flashes of a near and dear friend of ours, Scott Schilling, and one of his favorite quotes that I just absolutely love is high intention, low attachment. And I just love it because I was just listening to what you were saying. And the second part of this that I think is just so spot on is connect to the heart. And here's where I'd like to challenge everyone on. I'd be curious on your thoughts on this, Robin, is in our personal lives, in our personal relationships, we work so hard to connect at a heart level to build those deep, meaningful relationships. Where do you see the struggle in sales if we apply those same things? Because a lot of us are going to go, hey, right, this is professional. I can't connect to the heart for insert whatever reasons. Where do you see this, that salespeople struggle with this? I'm just curious.
True. Well, it's natural that salespeople are going to want to, they're going to feel challenged to connect to their heart because we think of this as just a mental game. It's all about knowing the exact best strategies to use, the best words to use, and not really thinking of it as involving the heart. Like you said, Larry, we kind of relegate that to our personal lives, right? And so the challenge is in number one, just embracing that we have many different forms of intelligence, right? We have our IQ and we have our EQ. And we have other forms of intelligence as well, I believe, including our intuition and intuitive intelligence. If you use just one of those, that'll get you so far. But what about expanding your repertoire to the entire breadth of intelligence that's available to you? It won't prevent you from being, it won't prevent you from reaching your goals. In fact, you'll get there much quicker. So it's a bit of a mindset shift in simply embracing that there is more intelligence available to you in order to help you succeed and get your goals achieved quicker.
I think it's so interesting because, all of the great classic sales trainers just going back even decades or even most of the century would say buying is based on emotion, but we end up approaching everything through IQ these days, right? The create value proposition and the sign. But what's beautiful is even in the early days, back when they were saying that 50 years ago, the early days of emotional intelligence really brought some science to this. And as you're putting the book together, well, first of all, tell us about the book. You got to tell the audience about this incredible book and where it came from.
Yeah. So the title of my book is Heart Powered Sales. And this was really, thank you for holding that up, Larry. So this was really born out of my own experience as a B2B sales rep. For a number of years, I was selling a high quality line of nutritional supplements to healthcare practitioners. And through this experience, I was really just day in and day out approaching it from what came naturally to me, what worked intuitively for me. And then, of course, having a good plan, rolling up my sleeves, working hard, being really good at follow up, all these different pieces. And as I went through all of that, I really realized I was starting to connect the dots of what's working and what isn't. And so that's kind of how the book was born, is that I really wanted to share. I wanted to share my experience and help others to achieve their goals in sales, but even more so to really connect to what they absolutely love and to become more of who they are, which Larry and Daryl, I know that you focus so much on the importance of authenticity in sales, and it's vital. It's vital not just to our sales careers, but to who we are as people.
No, I love it. And as I was diving into the book, one of the things that I really appreciate that you really hit home on is we're big, huge believers in the inner work that you do fuels the outer success that you have. And unfortunately, so many in sales focus on the outer part of this and they don't focus on the inner part of this. Walk us through some of the things that salespeople can do, if you don't mind, Robin, that can really help. Because you just a little bit ago, you brought up about becoming centered. So how could we work? Coach us through how they can work to become centered and just how they could just fuel their inner self to actually help fuel outer success.
100%. So you're right. We focus so much on the outer game, and that is important, but the inner game is equally important, if not more so, right? It's not just what you say, it's how you show up, how you say it, right? And so, how can you do that? So much of it is being attuned to your own emotions, being able to manage your own emotions, and being attuned to what your customer is feeling as well. And that's kind of the core of emotional intelligence, right? And so in being attuned to your own self, managing your own emotions, part of that, Larry, you asked, how can sellers do this? Well, a very, very simple practice that you can take every single day and before every single sales meeting is to simply get centered. And what that means is I like to use the acronym BRAT, B-R-A-T, okay? Because sometimes we're little brats and we get attached and we want things to go a certain way, okay? So rather than being a little brat, take a moment, just take 30 seconds, 60 seconds. And the first step, B, is breathe. So just breathe, okay? That brings you back to the present moment. Because we're always so much up in our heads, looking forward, worrying, future, tripping, right? So breathing brings you back to the present. The second step, R, is release. Release attachment to the outcome, okay? Things don't have to go the way you want them to go. Things will go the way they are meant to go. And your job is to show up and be fully present and ask, how can I serve? How can I best serve this customer? The next step, A, is to ask. Ask for guidance. And that can be ask for guidance from within yourself, from the universe, whatever you believe in. In those last 30 seconds before a meeting, you're not going to cram anymore. There's no more preparing that you can do. All you can do is ask and be open to guidance. And then the final step, T, is to trust. Trust that things are going to unfold the way they are meant to. So that's the one part in terms of how can you connect to yourself? How can you connect to your heart? Beyond that, also, you want to think of what do you love and what are you grateful for? That's going to help you just get really into that heart space, even if it has nothing to do with the meeting that you're about to walk into. Just think of what you love and what you're grateful for. That'll really help to get you centered.
Hey, Daryl, I love this. It's like salespeople in another acronym, but I'm going to start fueling my inner brat.
Yes.
I think that'll work well for you, Larry.
Sorry.
Exactly. So you
But that's-
don't want to be a little brat, right? Yeah.
Super, super practical and being, we once again as salespeople, we would say that buyers buy on emotion. We want to be present in the moment, but what are we doing to be present? That right there is super practical in terms of how to show up and be present. But you talked about the other part of emotional intelligence, being able to read what's going on with the other people in the room. Coach us a little bit on how to pick that up.
Yeah. So this is vitally important as well, right? Really understanding the words behind the words. And sales is really all about communication and understanding, right? So how do we get to a point where we can understand the words behind the words? Well, I'd like to share a little story from my first career. I was an Italian translator. Okay, so long before I got into sales, I was an Italian translator. I studied Italian. I learned it as an adult in college. Then I lived abroad. I worked and lived in Italy for a while. And then I moved back to San Francisco and I was an interpreter. Okay, I was an interpreter for visiting Italian filmmakers who would come to San Francisco and present their films. And they would speak to the audience, and I would be up on stage with them speaking to the audience before or after the film. And one year, we had a very big filmmaker come, Lena Wertmuller. In the Italian world, she's very famous. She actually did win an honorary Academy Award as well. So I'm up on stage with Lena Wertmuller. She's about like 4'10". Okay. She's this tiny little woman, gray hair. She's a little firecracker. She wears these big these signature white glasses that she's really known for. I'm up on stage with her and she's telling a story and she's very charismatic. She's telling this story. And as she's telling a little story, there's a word that she uses that I don't know, because Italian is not my native language, right? So I don't know, I'm fluent, but I don't know every single word. She uses a word that I don't know. If I had stayed up in my head for that split second, I was saying, oh my God, I don't know what this word means.
Right.
And meanwhile, there are 700 people in the audience who are waiting to hear me translate this line that she just said, knowing that it's going to be funny or it should be funny, right? Well, in that split second, I sunk down into my heart and I felt the words behind the words.
Oh, wow.
Of what she was saying. And in that moment, I knew what the word meant because I could feel it was about feeling, not thinking, right? So I was feeling her story. And so I was able to just seamlessly translate that sentence, and no one knew that I had no idea for that split second what that one word meant. And the audience laughed, and everybody was kind of on the same level of energy. Everyone was enjoying this story. And so for me, that encapsulated that moment of, if you're in a sales meeting, if you really pay attention and really listen, what are the words behind the words of what your client is telling you? So that you can leverage, yes, your logical mind and following your process and listening to what they're saying about their problems and pain points. But even more so, you can feel into it and really understand. When you're feeling into it, you're more attuned. When you're more attuned, they are going to feel understood and listened to. And that's where the magic happens.
I love this. And especially what you just said about being present in the world that we live in today, where, we're behind cameras. This is where being present is so important. But before we go any further, I'm going to throw you on the spot because it's my bad. I should have known that you were an Italian interpreter. So my bad. I apologize to you.
That's okay.
Because I should have asked better in our conversation. You got to drop some Italian because we have a worldwide audience. So in case there's somebody who's fluent in Italian, just drop 15-20 seconds of Italian. You got to do it, please.
Va benissimo, con molto piacere. Per me è un onore stare qui con voi due a parlare delle cose che stanno al cuore a tutti e tre.
Oh, I love it.
felt it. I felt it.
So excited I dropped the mic.
If all of us spoke Italian, this emotional intelligence thing would be so much easier. I love that. You know what? That was really, really cool. And the first time, for the record, anyone's ever spoken Italian on the Selling from the Heart podcast. And
Awesome.
we have no idea what you said, but we trust that it was good because we felt it.
Good.
Going back to what we're talking about, though, we in the sales world, the word empathy gets thrown around a lot, right? You got to be empathetic. And I'm just thinking back to my early days, flashbacks of sales training, feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel, right? Or really? Like, I mean, really? The fake pseudo empathy that exists in sales versus like, how do you get to that place where, because I know all of us at Sell from the Heart would say, I want to be empathetic. But how do you really get there? Like, how do you get to that place?
Yeah. And you're right. People can give lip service to that. And, in saying certain trigger words, like I understand, but to empathy is to really, to feel, to put yourself in the other person's shoes and really understand where they're coming from and what their challenges are. And it's so important because people, as you mentioned earlier, and we all know, people do buy with emotion and then justify with logic. And in order for you to really speak to their emotion in whatever emotional state they're in, you have to really be able to feel it and to understand it. And so how do you do that? A lot of that comes from really listening, bringing yourself back when you find your mind kind of drifting and projecting into what is the next thing that you want to say. Really slow down and actually listen to what the person is saying and understand, just asking yourself, so what is the emotional driver behind this? Are they overwhelmed right now? Are they challenged? Are they afraid of making a bad decision? Are they excited about possibilities? Wherever it is, whatever it is, you have to meet them where they're at. Meet them where they're at, but then also so that you can know, what your starting point is, and also be ready to lift them up with excitement about what is possible for them. Lift them up in terms of providing insight into a challenge that they hadn't considered, right? So it doesn't mean you have to stay there. You don't have to wallow there, but it's a way of meeting people where they're at. And you do that by listening.
I think that this is so important, and I'm glad that we're touching on this because we try to impress people with logic, and we don't go down the emotional road. But just think about it for a moment, is when we go down, and I'm not discrediting the logic part of this by no means, but it's just to kind of further, prove this point, is when we fail to go down the emotional side of this and we hit on the logic side of this all the time, how are we really making that person feel? Because they've heard it all before.
That's right. That's right. And if you, for example, are bombarding them with a lot of logical reasons as to why this solution is best for them, but they're in a state of overwhelm and information overwhelm, right? Because there's no shortage of logical information that's accessible at the click of a mouse. You're just adding fuel to the fire of their overwhelm.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And the way so you just want to be attuned to, what is their state right now? How can you actually simplify things rather than adding more to that overwhelm?
It's so interesting when you think about the percentage of deals that get stuck in the pipeline, right? Let's just get super practical here for a moment. I think every sales leader and every sales professional listening in goes, yeah, I've got deals that are stuck in the pipeline. And you go from a logical standpoint, I made the case, right? I made the case. Our recent conversation with Brent Adamson, we dove into sense making dealing with what we're talking about, information overload, right? I got 8,000 sources of information. They're all good sources, and they're telling me 18 different ways to do things. We go into that world of sense making, helping people try to make sense of it, but we've got to go into that emotionally sensitive to what's going on behind the scenes. And I know when I feel overwhelmed, just personally, I'm like, you just shut down. And, and that's, that recognition right there. So let's talk about that for a minute, because I think that is so common nowadays. If I sense you're in a state of overwhelm, how would you coach someone to handle that?
Yeah, sense making is the best word. And in fact, I came across that article in Harvard Business Review about sense making, and I've just been working on a blog post about it. Because,
Awesome.
just last week, I think that it's incredibly important to boil things down and make things relevant for the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So, sometimes, like, you've heard, like, just tell me what to do. Right. And so if you're sensing that they are in that state of overwhelm, don't be at least this article that I read in Harvard Business Review speaks of, they're the givers. They just want to give information. And maybe it comes from a really good-hearted place, but giving over giving just adds to the overwhelm. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the telling, just kind of informing someone, like, I really think that, this and not that, and this is what I've seen, but you're not making it relevant to that person. That also, again, is not really serving them. So with sense making, you're vetting and curating all the sea of information out there and bringing it down to a point of relevance for that buyer, and presenting them with information on exactly how this applies to them and simplifying it. This is what's going to be best for you. This is my recommendation.
Oh, this is good stuff, because the first thing that comes to mind is confidence. As sales people out there, we have to have enough confidence in ourselves to pick up what that other person's throwing down and say, hey, you know what, Robin, this has been a great conversation. I sense, right? I could be wrong, but I sense you've been absorbing a lot of information recently about ... Tell me about it. How are you feeling right now about it? And just listen. But you have to believe in yourself, and you got to deliver this with conviction, because what comes next is going to give you the keys to how to engage further in that conversation.
That's right. That's exactly right. So just really paying attention. Yes, having confidence where you're not doubting yourself, and you're not caught up in your own head about,
exactly.
what's the best thing to say. You just go with it. Right. And circling back, Daryl, to your question about how to move a stalled deal forward, usually it's probably being stalled because of some sort of doubt or overwhelm or fear of making the wrong decision. And so, Larry, using that phrase of I'm sensing that, that's powerful. I'm sensing that shows that you're really feeling into what's going on for the buyer, and that you don't want to be overly confident in saying you are feeling XYZ. No, you could be wrong. So you're saying, I'm sensing that you're afraid of making a wrong decision. Am I off base here? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And bring that up, let's bring that into the conversation. And this is so great. Robin, I'm so excited about the conversation threads that you've opened up here. And I'm so excited about our community getting to know you and the book. Tell us more about how we can get more Robin Treasure in our lives.
Yeah. Well, I would invite people to check me out at robintreasure.com. That's ROBIN treasure, robintreasure.com. And there you can find information on my book, Heart Powered Sales. It's also available on Amazon. And And then also the best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. I love to hang out on LinkedIn. It's how Larry and I first met. So I'd love to connect with anyone who'd like on LinkedIn as well.
Fantastic. Well, Robin, this has been a
This has been
wonderful
awesome.
conversation. You are a treasure. You're a resource to the Selling from the Heart community. And we just thank you so much for investing in us today. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
It's really
Robin.
been an honor. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Larry, what
Oh,
amazing.
that was so good.
So many great things in this conversation. And I think this is a rewinder and take some notes. And I, what Robin's talking about here today, and we're talking about at the end, is in identifying, acknowledging, and being present to what's going on emotionally in the room, the Zoom room, wherever you are, being present to that and bringing that into the forefront is really, really critical.
And just to echo this, and it's really important about this presence. And I can't emphasize it enough, because when you're not present, you're going to struggle to pick up the clues. And those are the clues that you're going to need to really unpack, to really uncover more. But it starts, you got to have this confidence in yourself, be present, and just ask, right? Hey, I'm sensing,
Absolutely.
and then insert. You'll be surprised what happens next.
Yeah. And this goes for leadership as well. We didn't get to talk about leadership, but I want to give a shout out to the Selling from the Heart Sales Leaders Mastermind. And this whole thread of conversation around being present to our sales team and being aware of what's going on emotionally in their lives is really crucial as well. So we welcome you to join us for an upcoming Sales Leaders Mastermind. If you are a sales leader or you know one, go to sellingfromtheheart.net/mastermind. Larry, we've got an unbelievably exciting roster of guests coming up this summer. Let me just say, if you have not liked, subscribed, all of that, please do it. And by the way, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and look up Selling from the Heart. And if you're just listening on audio, I invite you to go to YouTube and actually hit the subscribe button, because what's so fun about this podcast, you
get to look at two good-looking guys as well. Come on.
But part of the fun of this podcast is interacting with the video. So if you've been listening for years on audio, we invite you to go stereo, get the whole experience. Go to YouTube, and while you're there, do us a favor and hit subscribe, because that helps us reach more people with this movement of authenticity in the sales profession. And you are part of the movement, and we're glad you're here. So Larry, I'm excited. This has been a fabulous conversation, and we got much more ahead in the summer to come. It's going to be so much fun.
Stay tuned. There is more, Daryl.
That's right. So until next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep adding real value. Be present to the emotions of what's going on in the room with your clients. And most of all, sell from the heart.